Iowa State, BYU, Kansas State, they're all getting a lot of hype going into next season, but should we all get in line behind the real king of this conference? This is the Locked On Big 12, Locked On Sun Devils crossover.
You are Locked On Big 12, your daily podcast on the Big 12 Conference, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Happy Thursday, everybody. Welcome to a Locked On Big 12, Locked On Sun Devils crossover. I'm Drake Toll from America's #1 Big 12 podcast, Locked On Big 12. That is Richie Bradshaw of Locked On Sun Devils, talking all things Arizona State every day. Thanks for making our two shows your first listen every day. Get in line. Should everybody else forfeit? Lay it down, wave the white flag, and accept that Arizona State is the new top dog in the Big 12? Richie says yes, but can he defend that statement? We'll start there. We'll also get to the Big 12 having a really good recruiting cycle. UCF just signed a top-notch quarterback out of the state of Arkansas, and even they have been overshadowed by Arizona State and what the Sun Devils are doing in 2026. But the conference as a whole, not just ASU, is blowing up. Then, for the guy who, Arizona-based school, they have the weird time zone thing. Sometimes they're Mountain, sometimes they're Pacific. Is it time for full-time Pacific members, Washington State and Oregon State, to the Big 12? Should we do that? We'll get through all of it. If you hit subscribe, we get to keep our jobs. Richie, you sent me a text. You're like, man, it's starting to feel like it's college football playoff or bust, championship or bust in this conference for Arizona State, who won the league last year under Kenny Dillingham. In your maybe not so humble opinion on the topic, is Arizona State the top dog in the Big 12?
They definitely are. And it's one of those things where, like, you've really only had 1 year of success in the last several years, and it's your first year in the conference. So you shouldn't have a mindset of like conference championship or bust or playoff or bust. But that's the vibe that's going around in the Valley right now. A lot of Sun Devil fans are super bought in a way that we haven't been bought in a very long time. And you see everyone that's coming back, and you see everyone that's bought in. We lost almost nobody in the winter or the spring transfer portal. Everyone's dialed in to this program. The coaching staff is in and everything. And this is a team that took care of the Big 12 for the most part last year. Their first game in the Big 12, they got humbled. They had to go to Lubbock. They played a really good Texas Tech team, or at least better than what people gave them credit for. And then you had to go to Cincinnati without Sam Leavitt, which that was a much tougher environment than I think any of us were expecting. So other than that, I mean, they handled business pretty well against the rest of the Big 12 competition. You're going to be playing teams that you didn't get a chance to last year, like Baylor and TCU and Houston. So that'll be a fun experience for you as well. I just think right now, coming off of what you did last year to the conference, and with basically everything returning, I feel pretty good about my chances to repeat.
Yeah. I mean, here's the deal. If you're listening to this as a fan of TCU, Texas Tech, Cincinnati, we're talking to Richie Bradshaw, who is the defending champion of this conference. So as frustrating as it might be to say, hey, well, Texas Tech has better NIL. BYU has a better large fan base that's worldwide. And in the transfer portal, you look at Colorado as being top-notch, and they were way better than Arizona State this year. We have a defending champion who, as we will get to, is recruiting very highly for 2026, and a coach that a lot of like BYU fans still hate Kenny Dillingham. It's a beautiful young rivalry in this conference. They still hate him, but a coach that is so green, right? He's not Dabo Sweeney pushing 60. He's not Nick Saban retiring. He is a lifer for the next 30 years at Arizona State if all goes the way the university and that Kenny Dillingham plans. That seems like the recipe, alongside, I mentioned on my show, the lack of transfer portal guys. Lots of continuity. Arizona State loves to develop you and bring you in if they need you. They don't lose a ton of guys. On top of that, recruiting's great. The head coach is great. NIL has a new boost. You're in a major market in effectively Phoenix. This feels like what you would want to put in the stew if you're going to cook up a very good situation for a college football program.
Yeah, and it's one of those situations where it feels like everything is finally culminating together because they do have so many assets that are right in your backyard. And there are a lot of deep pockets that are out here in the Valley in your massive metropolitan area. So there's a lot for you to be able to take advantage of that you just haven't been able to. And you're starting to get a little bit of a grip on it. If you can repeat what you did last year, a 10-win season, at least a appearance in the Big 12 championship, a nice bowl game or something, you would be able to really activate the Valley and start getting people to really literally to buy into this program, which me and you have talked on the show before about ASU could be a really good NIL team. The problem is getting people to literally do the buy-in for the program. But there is a lot that's going right for them right now. And with everything that's stacking up going into the summer, this is just a program that's in really good shape. And I know that we got really lucky with the transfer portal in the sense of, like, you would think you would have lost more guys, like some redshirt freshmen or some sophomores who weren't able to get onto the field last year.
Jordan Tyson, you would think that Florida picks up the phone, calls Jordan Tyson and says, we'll give you $3.5 million. Mm-hmm. He would bounce, but he didn't.
Right. Because they are interested in what's going on here. So even these guys that are second string or third string, they look at it and they go, I'm going to get my opportunity. I know I am if I continue to work and put in that time and effort. And that's one of the things that's been so beautiful about what Kenny Dillingham has been able to build here is the guys that want to be here. That's why you don't see 10 5-stars on this team. You wouldn't be able to recruit them at this point in time. But that's why they're not afraid to bring in the 3-stars that no one wants, because they want to be a part of the program. You want to be a Sun Devil, you're going to be here. Lo and behold, everyone's here.
Yeah, Richie, I want to make it clear to everybody who's listening that is a fan of those schools, like a Kansas State or a Colorado or a Utah. It's not to say that they won't compete, but this is the defending champion, and they have a great situation. And I'm not dogging BYU. I'm not dogging West Virginia, Cincinnati. But gosh, you got to give the flowers to Arizona State where they are deserved, even if you don't like Kenny Dillingham because he yelled. Coming up, Big 12 recruiting is better than ever, and Arizona State's kind of at the forefront of that, alongside the BYUs, the UCFs, and a lot of this conference just getting better. This is a Locked On Big 12, Locked On Sun Devils crossover. Crazy I could even record a show because I was playing my Xbox on my Fire TV. Turn any TV instantly into an Xbox with Fire TV stick and its 4K devices. No console required. Xbox Game Pass Ultimate, EA Play included. You're ready to go with EA Sports College Football 25 and Call of Duty. You can jump into your favorite Xbox titles without needing your console in every room. Yeah, like, oh, well, I had to move from the living room to my bedroom and I don't have my Xbox in the bed. Fire TV Stick 4K makes it possible to keep playing the game anywhere. Go to Amazon.com/Fire TV Locked On. Amazon.com/Fire TV Locked On to get started. Xbox Game Pass Ultimate subscription and compatible controller required. Available on select devices, including Fire TV Stick 4K, Fire TV Stick 4K Max, and Fire TV Cube. That's Amazon Fire TV. That's Richie Bradshaw of Locked On Sun Devils. The Big 12 has taken an insane step in recruiting for 2026, while other schools are like, oh, we're going to go out and get the best transfers in the world. The Big 12 is still recruiting high school kids from BYU to Arizona State to UCF to Texas Tech. Like, these schools are utilizing their resources to recruit the high school ranks. UCF just got one of the best quarterbacks in the class coming out of the state of Arkansas. Jake Fett to Arizona State. Look at Brock Harris to BYU. We are seeing this conference recruit at a level that it may have never recruited at before. It could be at the highest it's ever been. Arizona State squarely leading the pack there, according to On3. Before we get to the Sun Devils specifically, this just feels good for the entire conference to see the amount of talent that's coming into the league.
Yes. I love that Kansas, of all the programs in the Big 12, is at or like right near the top. They're ahead of ASU on like
Houston, Kansas places. Are both right there. Yeah.
Yep. And then Iowa State is not far behind. So I'm with you. I love the way that the Big 12 is culminating all their recruiting together right now. And it's not like they're just getting nobodies. Like, it's not like Kansas has 30 kids that are 3 stars or unranked. Like, they've got a couple 4 stars in there. They plucked a kid out of Manhattan, Kansas, which is right where Kansas State is. So, I mean, the recruiting is crazy right now across the conference. And that's something that the rest of the country doesn't want to see, Drake. They don't want to see the Big 12 thriving right now. And there's a lot of good teams in the Big 12. And I think that this conference is going to surprise some people next year because ASU will be back. I still think BYU is good. I still think Iowa State is good. I think Texas Tech is going to be huge this year. I still am big on Baylor. I like TCU. Kansas State's always there. There's a lot of good stuff going on. And the recruiting, it backs that up more.
Yeah, I think the problem you'll see in the Big 12, and this is not to knock on TCU fans, you could see the Horned Frogs finish 7th or 8th in the Big 12 next season in a year they could have finished 2nd or 3rd, I think, in the ACC. That gap is starting to grow now, where I think some of these mid-tier Big 12 teams could compete at a much higher level in the ACC because their product is going down, our product is going up. Walk me through, and this kind of goes back to our conversation earlier about championship or bust for Arizona State moving forward, right? How you've been blessed in year 2 with the head coach who won you a Big 12 championship. Now it's kind of what you expect. It's a blessing and a curse. But the high school recruiting is backing up longevity in the win column for Kenny Dillingham and company. What makes Arizona State number 1, according to On3, in the Big 12 in the class of 2026?
I think right now it's the continuity of the staff. It's the fact that Kenny Dillingham is still there, and he just signed an extension. Marcus Arroyo, the offensive coordinator, is still there and signed an extension. Brian Ward, the defensive coordinator, is still there and signed an extension. Now, Arroyo is already getting a lot of buzz to be a head coach next year, and he was already a head coach previously at UNLV, so it's easy to connect those dots. But as of now, you've got all of that's sticking together. You've got the assistant coaches that are still there. So AJ Cooper is still there. Brian Carrington is still there. Sean Aguano is still there. Hines Ward is still there. Like, you've got good assistant coaches, and you got some high profile assistant coaches that are there as well. So you look at all that continuity that's coming together and the way that these guys have been able to build each other up and create the brotherhood and everything like that. It's just a place that these kids clearly want to be right now. And the kids that have transferred either were never going to see the field, unfortunately, or, maybe they just feel like they belong somewhere else because the rest of the guys that are here, they are big fans of what's going on right now. Like, it's really fun and crazy to see everything that's going through this program right now.
Has Arizona State, to your knowledge, ever recruited at this level, at least in the modern era or even the last 10, 15 years?
Not to this level. They've brought in some high-profile kids. Jaden Daniels was a super high 4-star, 5-star, depending on where you looked, that they got in the Herm Edwards era. Herm brought in tons of really good 4-star kids that stuck around for a little bit. Todd Graham 10 years ago was recruiting some really good kids. Nikhil Harry was a local kid who decided to stay. He was one of the 10 highest rated recruits. Like, we have seen good recruiting from ASU, but the steady improvement that we're seeing from Kenny Dillingham is what's blowing me away right now. He gets to this program in 2023 in December. There was only 4 commits at the time. 3 of them left. CJ Fight, the defensive tackle, is the lone one who stayed. He's on his way to the NFL at this point. They're able to rebuild this class quickly. He somehow convinces Chayton Rashada to come down for a year. The next year, kills it in the transfer portal. 3rd year, 2025, they are able to pull in a pretty darn good freshman class. And now 2026, they're trending in a great direction. So I can't remember the last time that ASU has just been trending so high up with the recruiting. They've had good classes. They have not had the trajectory. That's your key word here. The trajectory they have right now.
Yeah, Richie, they're not recruiting very well in 2025 in the transfer portal for next football season. I made the case this week that's not a bad thing for a team like Arizona State, who has a lot of guys returning.
That's
Do you,
exactly it.
do you feel like you agree there that a transfer portal ranking for Arizona State right now doesn't matter that much?
No, not at all. And I mean, Kenny Dillingham had come out and said at the end of the season, because his first 2 seasons, 23 and 24, they did attack the transfer portal. They added almost 50 kids in those 2 years. But he comes out this year and he's like, yeah, we actually have a really good team. Like, we're only going to add maybe 8 or 9 kids. And they still ended up in double digits. But even Kenny at the end of the season was like, we really don't got to do much. Like, we've got a great core here. And lo and behold, no one's leaving. So we've got the group of guys that we were counting on to return are returning. Like, you are returning the vast majority of your 2 deep depth chart, which is just unheard of.
Coming up, let's go in depth into another couple of teams from a new time zone, that was kind of a new time zone in the Big 12. We'll talk about the way Arizona as a state does things. But Washington State, Oregon State. Should the Big 12 finally take a look? This is the Locked On Big 12, Locked On Sun Devils crossover. Hey, today's show is brought to you by Monarch Money. The reason it's brought to you by Monarch Money is I am 24 years old. I don't know how to do the money thing. I just look at my bank account. Nope, it's gone. Where did it go? Probably to food delivery. That's where Monarch Money comes in. It's your own personal CFO, giving you full visibility to take control of your finances. And there's accountability in there too. For me, as I look at it, I'm like, oh, that's what I've been spending so much money on, and it's the reason I have no money. Accounts, investments, spending, all in one place. It's a complete financial command center. Stop managing your money. Start building wealth. When I started using Monarch, I realized how much I was spending on random stuff, and now I budget so much smarter. And you can also share your managing with your partner. It's smoother than ever. Set goals, stay on the same page. Take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Code LOCKEDONCollege at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. That's monarchmoney.com. Use code LOCKEDONCollege for half off your first year with Monarch Money. Reggie Bradshaw, Locked On Sun Devils, Washington State, and Oregon State. This is the age-old question now that they have stayed in the Pac-12 but effectively lost their conference. What if the Big 12 takes 2 schools that are very good at producing NFL caliber talent, being TV viewership gold mines, like 2 of the more watched schools in the Pac-12, 2 schools that have won recently in football, that still have investment. Kirk Schultz of Washington State was very involved in the college football playoff committee. With the way their TV numbers are, with the way they've produced NFL caliber talent, with the way they've held together the Pac-12 as an impeccable business venture, is it at least worth looking at adding a 4th time zone to the Big 12 via Washington State and Oregon State, especially on a half share?
Yeah, but why not? I mean, that's one of the biggest points that you can bring up right there, Drake, is they are producing so many good football players and coaches that are just getting plucked from them. I mean, you just had the head coach from Washington State move on. You just had a couple of years ago the head coach from Oregon State move on. You've seen quarterbacks move on. You've seen all sorts of players go to other locations and have terrific success. And it's not the fault of the schools that these kids don't stay. It's the fault of the Pac-12 for everything that collapsed. Because if there was no issue like that, I mean, Damian Martinez, who just killed it in Miami, is probably still at Oregon State. And if Washington State is able to hold on to John Mateer, they're going to be another good team. So I think that adding those 2 teams who know how to identify talent and have gotten the most out of their talent, putting them in a conference that will actually spotlight them, get them on ESPN, even if it's ESPN Plus, that sounds a lot better than the CW. No offense to the CW. It's a great opportunity for them to finally hold on to those guys. And honestly, there's a part of me that does feel not so much guilty, but like they deserve it. Like, They got absolutely mollywopped by everything that was going on with conference realignment. So bring them in. I love those 2. I love those 2 schools. Absolutely.
beat Texas Tech last year, so that shows they can still win even with
true.
those players transferring. Jake Dickert probably stays as well, and the Oregon State guy, I don't even remember the guy's name, who left for Michigan State, Jonathan Smith. They probably stay if given the opportunity to continue to coach the Power 5 level with these two schools. I think with the right, we saw it with BYU, with the right conference affiliation and media exposure, Oregon State and Washington State have the potential to further grow their viewership. Being in a more prominent conference like the Big 12 could lead to that increased national attention and higher ratings. But you start to think, okay, do we get anything from that? And yes, like the CW, as you mentioned, Oregon State, Washington State drew 700,000 viewers on the CW, which put schools like SMU to shame, like the other Power 4 like Boston College to shame. People watch these two universities. You're like, okay, well, it's a one-off. It's what? How about a game between Oregon State, Colorado State on the CW? 570,000 viewers, and you have to actively try to find the CW. It doesn't find you. You have to hunt down that TV channel unless you're watching Superman and Lois. That's it. It's either that or trying to find a Washington State, Oregon State game. And those numbers, to me, should be enough to, at the very least, perk up Brett Yormark's ears. And, Richie, make them be SMU. Don't give them a full share. Give them a half share. Give them a three-quarter share. None of us take a huge hit, and you have two schools that give you markets like a Portland or a Seattle where so many alumni from these two universities reside.
Yep. And I do admire the Pac-12 doing what they can to rebuild. But the biggest thing that I've seen is it's just the Mountain West. They're not able to pull Memphis and Tulane and any schools like that. So sure, maybe the Pac-12 gets remade, but it's the Mountain West, and that doesn't feel...
Well, it seems like we have lost Richie there for a second, but I want to continue on that point. Here is where it becomes pretty easy for me to welcome Washington State and Oregon State into the Big 12 Conference. It is the idea you have two universities that do not have to come as full paid members. They're not going to take a large chunk of your money. We see Washington State flying the flag at College Game Day. They've got the brand. We see that Oregon State has fought via the way they kept the Pac-12 together to remain a power school, to remain in a power conference. And that, at the very least, should perk your ears, should point your attention there. And then when you find out we don't have to give them the same $35 million, the same $40 million, the same whatever it is from our ESPN contract, we can go to a TNT, we can go to a True TV, go to a CW and say, hey, look, would it just be cheaper to give us the money and put their games on your network? But we get some of the money in this Pac-12 deal. We don't have to experiment with it. We get to avoid an experiment with a major TV network. They get to avoid a risk. We accrue said risk for far cheaper and then utilize that risk to boost our conference. In the world of stocks, okay, if there's a $100 stock and someone says, yeah, but it's super volatile, what if we give it to you for $50? You say, yeah, that volatility could push the stock to $200. It could also push the stock to $25. But at $50, that's kind of a hill of beans when the rest of our stocks are all 100. And this has the opportunity to become a penny stock for us. Such a low amount we're putting into it that when it does boost, we win as a conference. More than that, more than all of that, I know money's got to be at the forefront of the conversation. TV viewership has to be at the forefront of the conversation. What really should be A1 when we talk about this is just doing the right thing. And I know that's dead in college football. Doing the right thing doesn't exist anymore. Why would we ever do something that costs us money? But helping the guy who's begging on the side of the road, it's kind of the right thing. If you're TCU, if you're Cincinnati, if you're Houston, if you're Colorado and Utah, for Arizona, for BYU, what if you, and some of you have been, what if you got left out on the street with no conference? The money's gone. The coaches are leaving. The players are leaving. You're second fiddle, third fiddle down the pipeline. You're an FCS school. You're an afterthought. You're a group of 5 school, whatever you are. What if your team, your organization, your program that had built so much to become something in college football saw it all pulled out from underneath you in one day and there was nothing you could do about it? Now, the Big 12 has put $50, not just toward a stock, but $50, they've saved, they're half off to the ASPCA. We're like, dang, man, even if it doesn't work out, we helped the sick animals. We helped the dogs get the rabies vaccine. And honestly, in turn, there are less dogs with rabies out there because we helped. Did we win in the end? Maybe not explicitly, but less dogs have rabies. We gave the ASPCA money, and there's still that chance that one day the ASPCA is like, we have $1 million idea. We're sending dogs to space. And that's when the stock goes from $50 to $200 and you're making money back. That's the way I view Oregon State, Washington State. I think they add value to the Big 12. I think it's something the conference should still legitimately consider. This has been and always will be. Sorry, Richie. Locked On. Thanks for making it your first listen every single day. A crossover between the Sun Devils and Dose Grande.